The purpose for this presentation is to analyse how ethical practices relate to coaching in relation to codes of conduct and legislation. Ethics are our actions based upon our moral beliefs and what is deemed acceptable and unacceptable. Morals are our actions and behaviours based upon our personal beliefs. For example, coaches may break the rules because they believe in winning at all costs, which links to an ethical issue in sport. In relation to morals, an ethical issue in sport is development of moral qualities. Although sport teaches young people positive values, it does however have a negative effect by teaching people to break the rules and focus only on winning. As a coach, you are often seen as a role model and therefore an ethical approach to coaching would be required. This is because, as a coach, you need to teach the people the correct things. Behaviour is often copied by younger people and meaning ethical practice is vital. A third issue in sport shows how different sports have different levels of ethical practice. Young people are taught different ways of play and discipline. In some sports, people are taught to play to the whistle. However, in others, they must use their own judgment. A code of conduct is a set of rules and regulations which the coach must adhere to whilst coaching players. It ensures each coach knows the rules of play and the consequences of unethical practices and unacceptable behaviour. The three main benefits to this procedure means all coaches must oblige to the rules and they understand each one fully. Having a code of conduct prevents confusion on and off play. One code of conduct which has been analysed is the FA. It has shown both positive and negative aspects along with improvements which can be made. The code of conduct ensures each person adheres to the rules and shows a professional outlook on sport. The rules are stated clearly, however the statements are subjective and therefore could be more objective. On the negative side, the regulations are contradicting themselves as they do not apply to all situations in sport and they do not state what you should not do. The second code of conduct analysed is the LTA Tennis Nation. Positives, negatives and improvements were found. The code of conduct was not all subjective, meaning it was not all opinion based. It also states professionalism which will then reflect onto the coaches. The negative, however, show the rules of play were not mentioned and as an improvement these should be included. It is inconsistent as it lacks guidance and it is also more objective rather than subjective. Overall, in relation to ethical practices and coaching, the FA Code of Conduct is more effective as the statements are more subjective, meaning the coaches have to oblige to the rules. They are not given much choice. The rules stated on the FA Code of Conduct are a lot clearer as they mention both on and off play, as well as the consequences of unethical practice. Health and safety should be considered before and during the planning of every session. Risk assessments should be created and carried out before the session, as it allows the coach to be aware and know of any hazards which may cause risks to the players. A risk assessment often consists of the type of hazard and what risks are associated with that hazard, also including who is at risk, the level of risk, and the preventions of risks. Not creating a risk assessment is unethical practice because if an injury is sustained, the coach could face consequences as a result of not following the rules and creating a risk assessment beforehand. The first risk assessment analysed was based upon a netball tournament. The format was a table. The positives for this assessment were that it identified potential hazards and risks associated with that hazard. It was in-depth with detail, meaning the staff would know exactly which risks could happen as a result of a hazard. Responsibility of each check was clearly shown. On the downside, there was uncompleted areas and the equipment and control measures were not stated. The second risk assessment links to Sport England. The format for this assessment was very clear and included checks per day. It included potential hazards which could put people at risk. Alongside this, it evaluated both indoor and outdoor facilities. As a negative, there was no extra space for extra information to be written, nor were there enough checks per day, which is dependent on the facility. In comparison between the Sport England and netball tournament risk assessments, the netball tournament risk assessment is a lot more effective because it involves more detail about each hazard and risk. The majority of the information is also filled in, telling us who completed that particular risk. Accident reports, parent consent and administrating first aid are vital in relation to ethical practices and coaching. If a coach was to not fill in an accident form when an incident occurred, there could be serious consequences as they are being unethical and not following the codes of conduct. If the player is underage, parental consent is required because if not, the coach could administrate first aid without having permission to do so from the parents. These could be seen badly in various ways, and therefore this is where policies come into play such as Every Child Matters. DBS is a legal requirement form which allows the coach to be checked against their background and any criminal offences. It must be completed by those working in relation to young people and vulnerable adults. A standard disclosure form is required by those who have regular contact with young people. It provides information about convictions and cautions. An enhanced disclosure form is required by those who have greater contact with young people. This is because they often care or supervise the person, and therefore more information about that person is needed to ensure the child is safe. It provides details from police files. Without a DBS check, a coach could be at risk of serious consequences because they do not have the correct check to teach young people, but also the young people they are teaching are also at risk because the coach's background have not been proven.